Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the 24th San Francisco Indie Film Festival. I'm so excited to have you all here. We're joined by the filmmakers of the shorts program Journey, which will also be having an in-person screening on Saturday, February 5th at 4:45 p.m. at the Roxy. But thank you so much for joining me digitally. I'm excited to have this program. It's a really lovely, special program that I think highlights kind of the personal journeys that we go on. There's a lot of really beautiful representation of San Francisco with some of our films that I think is really special to highlight. And I'm just so honored to have everybody here. Today we have filmmakers joining us from the film Sammy and Quinn, The Devil Will Run, Pretty Boy, Phoenix, Lux Noctis, and The Bird Keeper. So thank you all so much. And I think we're just going to start off by kind of talking a little bit about what your film is that you're showing here at the program and what it means to you. And I think we'll kick it off with filmmakers for Sammy and Quinn. Christopher, you want to talk a little bit about your film?
Sure. First of all, I'm also a professor of film, professional filmmaker and a professor. And this film was very personal to me because they're actually my sons. And sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. So it was very cathartic to make this movie, but it came out of a class, Project Don Quixote, where we studied Cervantes from professors in Spain. And then the students watched me turn that into a art film. And they participated in the dreams, which might not have been in there if they didn't follow the rules and very key, things I wanted because it is a small professional crew, and they did it, and I was very proud of them. So they're like my living palette, so to speak. My students are in my own work, and so I did it for that, so my students can learn, but also to really kind of show mental health and unconditional love, something very, very important to me, mental health issues, and I do a lot on that. And then also, I love music. My background before film was music. I'm a composer as well. I teach being able to see music and hear film. So I befriended Kostas, who's a terrific composer, and he gets this whole idea of how the two blur. So, Kostas, you want to say something about working as the composer on this project?
Sure. Yeah. Just basically exactly the same thing, that it was a very kind of collaborative process. One of the reasons that I like working with Christopher is that we can, in conversation, we can easily switch between half speaking Italian in musical directions and terms, and then go directly into visual content and back and forth. And so that really worked with this film, and it was actually integrated into the narrative of this film because of the tie-in with the protagonist being a musician. So it was a lot of fun to kind of work with that. We also dealt with some, kind of balancing score with diegetic sound with the saxophone, because the saxophone was played live for the context. And so we had to re-record all of that. And so, get the right sounds and everything. So it was a very kind of collaborative, but also a very kind of complex process.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Could the filmmakers from The Devil Will Run speak a little bit about their film?
Sure, I'll kick it off. So I'm Noah Glenn. I'm the writer, director of The Devil Will Run. And my collaborator is here, James Dukes, goes by I Make Mad Beats. He's a music producer who produced, co-wrote, and scored this short. So, and the short came from a conversation James and I had about childhood. I've always been just fascinated with the way childhood experiences shape who we turn into as we grow, and like what are those memories that stand out in your mind from when you were a child. And James shared how there was a hole in his backyard that when he was like a 5-year-old boy, he feared that that's where the devil was. And I may let him speak more to his experience of that, but that's what the story grew out of. And I wanted to show just that kind of the anxiety of childhood, of like how am I supposed to be? Am I allowed to share this fear? Am I allowed to share this feeling with other people? If I do, am I going to be ridiculed? Or am I going to be able to find someone who will offer me comfort and offer me support?
Yeah, James Dukes. I make mad beats. Man, where do I start with this? Yeah, I was a young kid. There was a hole in my backyard. I thought the devil lived down there. You grow up reading the Bible, and you know the devil is below. And there was a hole that was black, and that was below. And I knew the devil had to come up somehow. So this seemed like an obvious entry point for him. And I truly believed that for a while. When I told Noah that story, he was very intrigued by it. and I think one of the coolest things was that, he wasn't the first person I told that story to, but he definitely asked the most questions. And I remember him asking me questions, and I remember thinking like, wow, this is the most anybody has ever cared about this story. And so to come back a year later and him, kind of propose like, hey, we can build on this and make a film about, circling this idea. That was very special to me. Quick, unusual facts. Both him and I have children born on the same day in the same hospital. So we actually visited each other in the hospital with newborn kids. And so there's a special connection between him and I that I think we're discovering every day. And so it was fun to make this film with him. Yeah.
What a beautiful collaboration. So far, I'm hearing about all of these really special collaborations that have helped to kind of bring about learning through the process of filmmaking, but also kind of helping to share your heart on your sleeve and on our screen. So thank you both so much. Can we hear a little bit about the film Pretty Boy, please?
Hi, I'm Nicholas Collins. I'm the filmmaker behind the music video Pretty Boy. It's just a slice of life documentation of my friend, the artist, Christian, who goes by Panda Raps, and his partner Paloma, and they go on a date in the Bay Area. And the song was a love song to Paloma. So yeah, I just kind of followed them around the Bay Area. We both grew up in the Bay Area and just wanted to really showcase where we grew up in Marin County, especially Fairfax. And and that's kind of it. He kind of came to me at a time where I was in a creative rut, and he's like, hey, bud, I started rapping now, so let's make a music video. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. So we had this big grandiose idea to make something huge. And of course, he gave me the number on how much he wanted to spend on. I'm like, oh, we can't do that. So it was kind of like, well, let's make something that's kind of more true. And he gave me the whole album, and I picked out Pretty Boy, and I fell in love with it. And I said, let's make this. And it's just, if we keep it emotional, I think people will definitely resonate with it. And, like 3 years later, it's been a wild ride with this little film that we made. So very special to both of us.
Most certainly. I think it really highlights, the theme of the program, just like that journey into not only like the great beyond, but within, and kind of the development of us as fully fledged meat puppets and cool humans that we are. So thank you so much. Can we please hear a little bit about the film Phoenix?
Yes, I'm Regina. I'm the writer and director of the Phoenix. And here with me is Danielle Diaz, who is the editor and just generally like my creative partner in life. And she's been so essential to this film. The Phoenix is about a little girl who desperately wants superpowers, as we all did as a kid. And she lives in a dysfunctional family, and fights keep escalating and escalating. And one day, as it escalates, she actually is able to unleash her superpowers, and she freezes time. And she is able to reverse time, and she tries to keep reversing to try and fix her parents' marriage to stop the fight from happening. And she learns that maybe superpowers aren't necessarily the key, that people aren't always savable, and that you kind of need to let go of guilt and move forward. It's been quite a journey, this project. It definitely is related to my upbringing, so it's very close to home. And it's been really cathartic doing this project and very therapeutic. And it's been a great journey. And I know that this shorts category is journey. So that's been great. But just to let Danielle speak a little bit as well, it was incredible, like having an editor on site with us to be able to get all these shots. So Danielle, if you want to speak a little bit about that briefly or quickly.
Yeah. So in the very beginning, Regina and I actually lived together for a short period of time. She came to me with this script and I read it and I'm like, wow, this is amazing, but how the heck are we gonna do this? And but after like just talking over about like creative ways on set to kind of like capture this innocence and capture this magic that happens. So like with the frying pan being frozen in midair, how are we going to do that with like no big VFX budget and no huge team? So being able to be on set and be like, okay, here's how we're going to hide it, and I can cut around the pan here. And we basically had a pan like on a C-stand and just cut around it in just a very creative way that we could accomplish with the budget we had. And then finding ways of using slow-mo to give this 3D frozen effect also. So being on set was really magical and like almost like editing on set in a weird way. And then being able to talk with Regina about like, okay, what was this moment like in your childhood, or like what was this like, what does this mean? And then being able to be like, okay, this is what we need to accomplish that in the edit. And that was really special.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Can we talk a little bit about the film Lux Noctis, please?
Hi, I'm Damiana. I'm the writer-director of Lux Noctis. It's the thesis film with which I recently graduated from the AFI Conservatory program. It's a short that I'm currently developing as a feature as well. And it portrays a matriarchal community where the women survive because of their ability to create light. And this, for me, is an inner metaphor that I was very interested in and connected to on a deeper level. And also, it allowed me to touch on a topic that I'm very interested in, which is healing the feminine in our society. And I'm sorry that my collaborators aren't here, but they were all busy. But yeah, it was a very long journey as well that we started before COVID and finished during. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And can we talk a little bit about the bird keeper, please?
Hi everyone, my name is Linda. I'm the writer-director of Bird Keeper. I'm joined by my husband Javier, who was the editor, storyboard artist, and VFX artist on the movie. Yeah, I think I would first of all like to say that I feel really honored to have my movie play along with all of your guys' movies. We watched them all and we really enjoyed them, and I think all of our movies have such parallels to it. It's really, really nice to see. I think Bird Keeper started out as a thesis film. It was a student short in the beginning many years ago. And it has since, I think, grown out of being a student film. But yeah, it's been a long journey too. I think it took about 6 years to finish it. And my partner Javier has been with me through the writing process and the storyboarding and like just building everything. And I think what inspired me to tell this story was just a fascination with the subconscious mind, specifically of like young kids, like how they perceive reality and how sometimes imagination and reality gets mixed up and it creates this beautiful world. I think in my story, the main character Lumen goes through a lot of trauma and she tries her best to find solutions, and it doesn't always go how she wants it to or how she plans it in her mind. So I just wanted to share this point of view of her being stuck in this surreal world, where she kind of has to find her way out and like she has to grow into like a different self as well. So that was a journey too. Just writing all of that and figuring out how that world inside her mind would look like. And I really loved playing with mythology and symbolism. So a lot of things like the bird representing the freedom and like her having to go through a maze. This whole story of when you go inside a maze and you find your way out, you exit as a different person. I think that were some of the main themes that I really wanted to bring into this movie. And yeah, I'll let my editor speak too, because that was a creative journey as well.
Yeah, so Linda came with to me with the script, and we were dating at the time, so we got married through this journey too, which was it's been kind of crazy to see like how much life has happened in the making of it. So it was fun to read the script and like read the know the budget. Obviously, we all know like limitations also drive like the creative process too. Which was exciting to kind of break down and kind of talk about films that we like, films that inspire us. So we started with storyboarding out the sequences and kind of playing with an animatic and kind of seeing like what's possible. How can we, like some of you have said, how do you cheat some of those effects and make them feel bigger than what limitations you may have? So it was nice from an editing point of view to help plan that out. So then once the footage started coming in, we could start putting these pieces together. And obviously the film, as we've all heard, you have the film as a script and you shoot the film, and when it comes back, it gets rewritten in the editing process. So I think like being from the beginning and knowing what we can play with, like was really fun to shape and help this from the pre-production end to the post-production end, and be that intimate with the project and know like where we can push and pull and what we can take out to still make sense of it, because it was so experimental in a way in the editing. But I think at the end, really making the punchline of the film at the end that kind of reveals this narrative at the end was really cool to kind of just be at it from start to finish in that sense.
Thank you so much. I think, yeah, we're all kind of hitting on this thing, right? Lots of themes of transformation. And in many ways, like a journey is a form of transformation. Like you don't come out the same person, regardless of how far you go. And I think that there's something to be said about that and just filmmaking in general, right? I'm sure we all have our battle scars, physical and emotional. Every film I've ever made definitely left an impact on me. So I was hoping we could quickly talk just about how the process of making your films has been transformative for you, and if there's any big takeaways at the end of that particular road as we get to share these films with the public. Like how have they imprinted upon you? And we can, yeah, Christopher, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I would like to. Everybody's talking about the technical aspects of their movies and what they did. For me, what I really wanted to do, and I'll get into what you asked, but was really show a city as a character. Because I'm from LA, but I live in both places, always have. But it was important for me that literally San Francisco was one of the characters, and then the suitcase was a character, the mise en scene. And so that was something that was very important to me, to how to do that. Also, The fact that it was COVID, and we shot it in like 5 days, obviously, and did everything pretty much like in 3 months, no budget, but it was in the middle of COVID. And if you show masks, you date your movie. So it made it very difficult. You don't want to say this movie is during COVID because it's timeless. And so we had to be constantly waiting. And my little kid was very nervous, wouldn't take off his mask. And my eldest son was going through some issues. So it actually was it was probably the hardest film I've ever made. And I've made a lot. I've made like 13 features. I've been in the business for 35 years. I've had horizontal rain, generators blowing up, anything you can imagine. I call it friendly fire, has happened to me. I almost died on 3 of my films. People, when they watch me, say it's more entertaining sometimes to watch me do what I do than the film. I go, I don't know how to take that. But there's a lot of funny stories, and my students want to make a film of me making a film. I said, that's not going to happen. But anyhow, the idea of doing something for me was cathartic because my mom had just died and she was mentally ill my whole life, had a horrible life, beautiful woman. And I wanted to do something that would honor her about mental health. That would be me and her 2 grandsons. So that was also a big, big part of it. And it feels good that people are resonating with that aspect of it, of what love is and what unconditional love is. So for me, I'm getting a lot out of that people are responding to the mental health thing in a positive light, because normally they don't.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Noah and Matt, do you want to talk about your transformation and the journey of making your film?
I'd started off on a light note. I'd say a big takeaway from this film is it was all shot in my home, in my backyard, and in my children's bedroom. And I've actually made a few other short films that have all had at least one scene that I've shot in my own home. And I can't do that again. I can't keep bringing that havoc into my life in that way. So, but I mean, we had COVID lessons on this one too, to run with Christopher's theme. I actually got a grant from the Indie Memphis Film Festival in the fall of 2019. That was supposed to be for a different film that I put on pause at the beginning of COVID. And then as things went on, I realized, hey, I've got a bunch of like crowd scenes. There's some things thematically that I wouldn't have anticipated becoming an issue, and I've got to kill that project. And I got Indie Memphis's permission to use the grant for this instead. So it was kind of designed to be not a film about COVID, but to be a film produced during COVID. Never more than 2 characters in a scene, 80% outside. There's a glass panel between 2 of the main characters. And so that it was, and a lot of things really, as I was planning it at like the height of the pandemic and thinking, am I actually going to be able to do this? And before we knew as much about, outdoor safety and stuff, my biggest concern was for these 2 brothers who are characters, having a lot of kind of close up dialogue. And I said, it'd be great if I could find 2 actual real life brothers to play these parts. So they're already in the house together, and, and I was on the site for a local talent agency. We're based in Memphis. I don't know if I mentioned that, but was looking at a local talent agency site and saw these 2 boys, their first names only listed on the site. I reached out to the casting director, and she said, oh yeah, they're brothers. And so they ended up being amazing to work with, and that was huge, and not a challenge, but a joyful lesson to learn that just when you have the right people, I'd say the theme in lessons that I learned film after film is to get out of the way as much as I can, to find people that I can just trust to do their parts well.
Yeah, I'll just start off by saying it was a joy working with the entire team that put this together. This was my first time ever. I mean, I'm listening to y'all, some of y'all, some true OGs in this. This was not, this was very much the first time I had ever experienced anything like this before. My background is deep in, I was an engineer and a producer at Quad Studios in Manhattan for about 7 years. And so I come from that side of the game, and I recently really wanted to get into scoring and composing for film. And so knowing Noah, it's just been fun. But you know, I don't want to get too dark. But the making of this film was very important for me for a couple of reasons. Number one, somebody's telling a story. The main character is saying things I said, you know, and he's talking about fears and things he was playing me, you know, and so you know, and that, just watching that is can be very strange. Something that, you know, it's weird to see your life and your story taken this seriously, to where somebody wants to put it on a, you know, into some medium and show it to people. That's weird. But the kind of extremely important part of what I'm saying, I actually, at the start of 2020, while the rest of the world was dealing with the pandemic, I lost feeling in my face and in my hands and a whole bunch of stuff. And I was first told I had some rare autoimmune issue, and then later told I have lupus. But it was real tough. I lost a lot of ability to do very common things, and I had gone into a very deep depression. And then that's when Noah hit me up and said, "Hey, let's make this movie." And I was like, "All right, cool," you know. And so, you know, I at times I felt kind of like I wanted to do more, but I just couldn't because of what I was going through. But just being there, being on the set, watching Noah do his magic, it was very important for me, and just feeling better about who and what I was as a person. So it was a very cathartic and very positive experience for me, and I'm ready to do it again. So yeah.
Can I have, because you're into scoring films, Matt, Constantine here has done several features. He's a professional, and you guys should maybe talk sometime. Did you watch all the films, Costas? Did you hear the music on that film? Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I didn't know if we'd be doing that a little bit later, but I enjoyed the soundtracks for all of the films. Yeah, they were great. And so definitely, and I'm going to be checking out more of all your different stuff too. I'm looking forward to that part of this process too.
And the other thing,
Thank
I just
you.
need to get to one quick thing. When my mom had her memorial service, he took all the themes from the movie, which was quite important to me, and I had an accordion player play the themes. So he did that as an artist and a dear friend, and it was beautiful. Thank you, Costas.
Thank you so much. Can we hear a little bit about the journey through the making of Pretty Boy? Kind of the personal aspect of it for you?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that we were set to make another video. We made this pre-pandemic, but it was just like the summer before lockdown. But we have made stuff during the pandemic, so I know all those trials and tribulations. Yeah, we were set to make something kind of bigger. In his words, he wanted to make something like Wes Anderson like, and a lot of casting characters and kooky costumes and very dry kind of towards his sensibilities. But again, yeah, you know, I mean, I had never made a music video before. Everything before was just all like narrative, straight short film. I'd never made a documentary before, and it's just because of the budget, I was thinking, well, we should just make this much smaller, more intimate. I'll shoot it and cut it and do everything myself. And it'll just be me kind of fly on the wall. And it really taught me to kind of get out of my own head and to kind of, show more of a vulnerability and an emotion to the pieces that I had never done previously. And also just to not be telling my story, but another person's story. And being very respectful to their vulnerability on screen, because they're very intimate and he's not like that in real life. And we definitely had some battles about in the edit into what we can show and we shouldn't show, and kind of met in the middle. And I'm very grateful for their trust in that. And also just post the video being released and just seeing kind of the outpour in the community too, and just reading the YouTube comments of people who identify as gay or genderqueer, and just being seen is just worth it completely.
Certainly. Thank you so much. Can we talk a little bit about the personal transformation on your experience for the Phoenix?
Yes. So yes, the Phoenix is very close to home. So there was like a lot of trauma that I had to deal with as I was making the film. And I think when I was writing it, it was just so therapeutic. And like when something would stick in the script, like I knew it because I would just cry. And I would be like, okay, so like that's the truth nugget. And then I'll just take it and then run with that. And obviously the script went through several iterations, but that's kind of when I knew. So the whole writing process was extremely therapeutic. I think like I had also dealt with some of the trauma before that too, which made writing the script possible and made the message possible, like me being able to articulate how I was feeling. And so that was great. And just like throughout the process as well, like throughout the editing process, once it clicked, the same thing would happen, tears. But like that's when I know that it was working, or like when the soundtrack was working, like because it hit the chord of truth and whatnot. So just the entire process was super therapeutic. I didn't cry on set though. I definitely was able to stay professional, et cetera, and like lead a team and whatnot. But like, you were able to recognize some truths, and it was really cool to just step back and look at it as a story versus like being so encapsulated in my own like mind and story and whatnot. So it was a great journey for me. Danielle, do you have anything to add?
I guess as far like emotional aspect aside, like I guess watching this film, like having to narrow down like you were saying, the truths, and especially like when we got to the editing process, we laid out the film exactly how Regina wrote it, and like we shot it and everything, and we're like, okay, like something, what can we play with? And we ended up like the whole beginning was totally reworked. The ending was completely like lifting up the car and being like, okay, like everything that falls off this car like goes. And getting to those nuggets was like both hard because you work so hard to like make it how you originally envisioned it being, but like letting go of stuff to making a better piece. That was fun journey to go on with Regina.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Demiana, do you want to talk about your kind of emotional process? I mean, obviously, not only through the process of filmmaking, but you're also going through like a program and working on this for, your education and your degree and stuff, which I think a lot of us can relate to.
We became the first project in the long history of the AFI to be shut down because of like the global pandemic. So it was tough like leading the team that was the first in the history of like such a long school, of having to go through that. And I think what really helped me kind of like keep it together for the 7-month long pause was that we had already created a community and a family in that particular project. And the crucial members of that family I had already worked with before, and are members that I'm going to keep around as I continue my path forward as a filmmaker. So I think that having that network of support allowed me to rewrite the story. It actually became a non-dialogue film in that rewrite. So we could finish it with COVID, but it kind of still made sense. And I think if you allow yourself as a filmmaker to be vulnerable and revisit your material without fear and trusting that everything happens for a reason, even if it's something as huge as what we've all been going through for the past 2 years, I think your work can really become better, or a better version that you might have not expected. And I think it's that combination of faith that everything happens, because it has to happen, being vulnerable, and having a community and family to keep close in this project. So that's what I took from this experience.
That's really well said. Yeah, I agree. I was actually going to be a UPM on some of the AFI projects right before. So it was a hard time, especially for those of us that were students during this period. And then last but not least, Linda and Javier, you want to talk about kind of your personal journey through this? I mean, you gained a spouse, you made a beautiful project.
Did not break us apart.
Yeah, it's been a very long journey. I think, as I mentioned, it started as a thesis film that I did at the Academy of Art University in San Francisco, which I like is my home still. Like I'm from Luxembourg, but I came to San Francisco to study, and I just fell in love with it so much that I still call it home, even though we live in LA right now. I think making this movie in school, I just had such an incredible crew that helped make this possible. And everyone was just so invested and so talented. So that it was really beautiful seeing it all come together, and our teachers were just so supportive, and I just remember them always telling us, you're making an independent short film. You're not making a student film, you're making an independent short film. Like, call yourself independent filmmakers. And it really just, I think it elevated all of our spirits a lot. And it just was a really great experience, and shooting all over the Bay Area was like phenomenal. We actually shot in our house where we lived together, and one of our rooms, 2 rooms in our house were actually locations for the movie too, so it adds a special layer. I think what happened after I graduated, I moved right away to LA, and I feel like I kind of lost touch with my short because it was 90% done. And then I feel like life just hit me. It was like finding a job and getting a work visa and figuring out all these things, and it's, as all of you know, it's really tough going from being a student to a working professional. It takes time and patience, and there's good days and bad days. So I feel like I lost a little bit of a connection with my project because I looked at it with different eyes later on. And then we actually ended up moving back to San Francisco. And I feel like as soon as we got there, I was like, I need to finish my short film. And I feel like that's when I reconnected to it. And I also felt like it was a parallel journey to my main character in the movie, how she kind of had to find a way back to herself, and then like kind of go through this maze and figure things out. And then I feel like I found the drive again to like just take it to the finish line. It was like almost done, so it was just was nice how we went back home to finish it. And I feel like all of us grew a lot along the way. So that was nice.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was just gonna add, like, creative stamina is a big thing, and I think that's something that you don't talk about, or we don't get to hear about too much. Is I was already working when I started the project, and so I was freelancing, and work would bring me to LA, and then it brought us back up to San Francisco, and like, you're working in the films 10-hour days sometimes, so like to have that creative stamina and feel fresh to like look at Birdkeeper with like fresh eyes and a fresh, and come in like with my A game on it. That's important because that, like, we feed off of each other's input, and we're like trusting each other that we're going to be honest with each other if something's not working. And so that, I think that was like the challenge on my end. And yeah, like what Linda said, going back home, we had taken a break from like looking at Birdkeeper for almost a year, I think. So then when the pandemic hit, I had lost my job, and we were just like on lockdown, and we both looked at each other and we're like, well, it's time to open that edit. Like, let's rip the Band-Aid, and like let's get to work. Let's see what we can do. And I think being in the city, being back, and being like forced to just kind of sit there and like look at it, and there was enough time that had passed where we can start like appreciating the things that weren't working, or appreciating the things that were working, but then like being able to look at the rest of it and start tidying it up, and just making those final, it's like the last 10 to 15% on a project that always feels that is as long as the entirety of it when you're trying to like get that polish, to the finale. So that was kind of, I think that was my point of view or my side of it.
Certainly. Well, we're sadly out of time. Thank you all so much for sharing your films with the festival and coming together today to speak about them. And thank you to our audience at home.